Sometimes the old ways are the best. I mean, it's all very well sort of like WhatsApping your mates or having all these group chats on social media, but is there anything better than just getting down to the pub and just having a proper catch up over a pint? And it's the same with Spotify. I love Spotify. I've got all my playlists on there and all the rest of it, but again, you know, sitting there on a Sunday afternoon when the house is empty, just slipping a black piece of 12-inch vinyl out of a cardboard sleeve and putting on the turntable, sometimes you can't beat it. Which means there's also something strangely comfortable about opening the bonnet of an Audi medium-sized saloon and finding a 2-litre 4-cylinder turbo diesel engine nestled in there. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new Audi A5 TDI. Please sit yourself down, make yourself comfortable in the house of cars. Now, before I get started on this week's review of Audi's new A5, it is of course the time where I would just ask a small favour from you, if you don't mind, just before we get started, then we'll put it to the side. If you're not already a subscriber to the House of Cars channel, would you consider becoming one, please? I've got some, but I'm a bit greedy like that and I'd like a few more. So if you're not already a subscriber, just press the subscribe button for me. Once you've done that, press the bell button as well, because then you'll get notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. And if you enjoy the review, and I hope you do, give it a thumbs up. And of course, as always, if you've got any thoughts on the cars that I feature on the channel, such as Audi's new A5 or on the House of Cars channel overall, then please leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. I do like reading them, so there we go. Right, A5. What is it? Well, you might or you might not be aware of Audi's naming strategy and how it changed and how it's changed again. Because what Audi decided to do was they said, well, what we plan to do is make even numbers electric. So all this, like the even numbers are going to be electric cars, all the odd numbers will be combustion engine cars. So the A4 was going to become all electric. The A5 is the combustion engine version. And then they changed their mind because they said, well, it's going to be too confusing for customers, far too confusing. So the new A6, which was to be called the A7, has come out as the A6, despite the fact you can also have an A6 as an electric car, the A6 e-tron. Confused? You will be. And it's gone even more daft than that, because the A4 being replaced by the A5, it's not a 3-box saloon anymore. It's actually a 5-door hatchback, believe it or not unlike the old A5 Sportback, except it doesn't have a Sportback tag in it. It's just called A5. So you don't get it as a saloon car now, despite the fact obviously Mercedes-Benz with the C-Class and BMW 3 Series still offer the saloon cars. And of course, if you need more practicality, yes, you can still have an Avant model, in other words, an estate. But it's the diesel thing that I was quite interested in, because obviously diesel seems to have fallen out of favour. In fact, you can't buy a diesel 3 Series from BMW at all now in the UK. And whilst you can still with the Mercedes-Benz, they're not seem so keen on it now. They're heading down the electric route. So Audi have seen a bit of an opportunity for people that still love stuff from the black pump, and that's why they're offering this car as a turbo diesel. Now you'll still be able to get the A5 in petrol form, and there are some plug-in hybrids coming. But I thought it was quite interesting to get the diesel one in and find out what it's like. But as always, let's take a brief look at the main points on the car before we start the full review. So the new A5 and its S5 Performance variant replace the outgoing A4 Saloon and Avant, as well as the A5 Coupe and Sportback. It's built on a new platform, and it's the first Audi to use the Premium Platform Combustion, or PPC. There are new generations of the TFSI petrol units and TDI diesel engines available. The 2-litre TDI engine that we have here and the 3-litre TFSI petrol unit also include a 48-volt mild hybrid system. And prices range from just over £41,000 all the way to over £70,000, depending on body style, trim and engine chosen. So a new name but a familiar recipe. Is it just as tasty? Or is it merely some reheated leftovers? Time to put it through a House of Cars road test review and find out. Right, let's start obviously with how it looks. Familiar is a word that you're going to hear an awful lot in this review. And that's pretty much how to really sum up the A5 styling. Familiar Audi, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Good looking car, quite handsome. Some people like it, some don't. It does tend to blend into the background. You know, there's very few people have actually gone up to and go, ooh, is that the new A5? It just goes about its business without too much of a fuss, which might be exactly what you're after, because it's less controversial than what BMW churn out, and may suggest probably a little bit more interesting than what Mercedes churn out. So it's somewhere between those two, but it's familiar Audi. There's some nice sculpting on the bonnet. It's fairly grown in size. I'll tell you what, for what was, you know, the A4, that medium-sized saloon car, this is now almost the same size as the early 2000s A6. It's quite a big car in some respects. Anyway, there we go. What have we got? Well, we've got the sort of familiar trapezoidal grille at the front, which in this particular trim, which we'll talk about a bit later, is all blacked out, which is quite nice. Use really slim matrix LED headlights. Now, I do like Audi's lighting at the moment, and seemingly these offer up to 8 different lighting signatures in them, and the reaction time and the way they illuminate is much faster than ever before. So I've always found Audi's lights, you know, over the last couple of years to be really very good, and this is no different here. The only thing that slightly grates on me a little bit is just this bit of plastic round here. This, I don't know whether that's particularly necessary. I mean, obviously there's some airflow management there, where the airflow goes round and round down the side of the car to make it a bit slipperier. But this bit of plastic here, and I think on something like the S5, or depending on the trim, that can be quite bright silver. I think it needs to be toned down quite a bit. So in these sort of like more kind of graphite grey finish on this particular car, especially in this dark blue colour, which is quite nice, it's just better. But yeah, that always catches my eye. I'm just not sure whether I like that or not. Obviously you've got your 2-dimensional Audi badge there sitting on top of the grille, and then down here you've got your sensors for your radar guided cruise control and various different bits and pieces. Nice little embedded camera there just above the number plate in the middle of the badge, and again typical Audi tight shut lines, you know, sort of like around the bonnet and the nose cone and everything else. So yeah, apart from those slightly odd bits in there, I think we're off to a relatively good start. But as I say, it's familiar Audi. Quite low and sleek, isn't it? And you can't really tell from that angle that this isn't a 3-box saloon, you know, like the old A4. It doesn't have that sort of hatchback look that the old A5 Sportback did. But it is a hatchback. There you go. Wheel sizes. Start from 18 inches on the Sport, move up to the 19-inch wheels that you get on the S-Line, and then you go to 20-inch wheels on the additional one, and I think on the S5 as well. These are 19-inch wheels, but this is a launch edition car. It's quite confusing, just bear with me on that. We will talk about trims, as I say, in the pricing section. Nice design of alloy wheel, like those, they're nice, you know. I do like Audi's new door handles, so flush door handles, and they don't pull them out. It's a little touchpad just inside, just nice. You can just feel it with your hand. You just touch it and the door opens. It's really nice, that, and it's got a really satisfying funk to the door, which is good to see out, you know, from Audi, because their build quality's been questioned, I would suggest, of late, and I'm going to talk about that when we're on the interior. But other than that, it's okay. You get the name of the car now on the door pillar here, on the B pillar. So you got Audi A5 TDI there. There's no real badging at the back. They've gone away from that silly 45, 55, whatever it was badging I could never understand. So that's gone now. So it is just purely, this is an A5 2-litre TDI. Thank you, Audi. Really nice sloping, sort of like swooping roofline into the rear pillar there. But as I say, you would be forgiven for thinking that this is a normal boot lid, but it's not. But yeah, I mean, as I say, it's what you expect from Audi, isn't it? You know, it's neat, it's handsome, it's stylish, if a little bit, dare I suggest, forgettable in some respects, because it looks like every other Audi saloon that's out there. But maybe that's not such a bad thing, is it? Now, round the rear, you get Audi's new OLED, is that how you say it? Light bar across, which again is very clever, the way it's sort of like it lights up to warn following road users what's going on with the car. So various different things, if you're stopping harder, then, you know, it'll glow differently and stuff. It's quite clever stuff Audi are doing with the lighting stuff, and it's really good. Quite distinctive. Looks the same on the new A6 e-tron and S6 e-tron. If you're interested in the e-tron, by the way, on the electric car, I have road tested the Audi S6 e-tron Avant, which is over on Auto EV, or going to be over on Auto EV very soon. So if you're interested in that car, head over to Auto EV. Anyway, what else have we got? We've got, of course, our usual 2-dimensional Audi badge, the 4 rings of English start. I'm a bit disappointed they've gone to the 2-dimensional badges. I always liked them in the chrome 3-dimension, but there we go, everyone's going that way. Tucked underneath there, you get your reversing camera, this nice sort of like sculpted diffuser area here. Twin exhaust pipes on it as well. They're not hiding the exhausts, and they are proper exhausts as well. You get your little red square So even though it's not an S model, you still get your little red square and then just A5 and the black badging there. But yeah, decent looking car, I think. You know, as I say, it's not exactly a standout car in the marketplace, but as I say, it's nothing frightening either. If you've come from an A4 or an older A5 Sportback and you're looking to upgrade, you'll be perfectly happy with this. And as I say, less controversial than maybe something like BMW are doing, and maybe a little bit more interesting than the blandness that Mercedes-Benz sometimes come out with. It doesn't really matter what I think about it, does it? You know, it matters more what you think about it. So let me know your thoughts or what you think of the look of the new Audi A5 in the comment section down below. Now, something that Audi's designers seem to have managed to pull off very well is they've managed to make a practical 5-door hatchback look really stylish and almost like a 4-door saloon car. You'd never know this was a hatchback in some respects. I think that's a good thing, because there was something I was a little bit awkward looking about the old S5 or A5 Sportback. Apologies if you have one, I don't mean to be rude about it, but it just looked a little bit awkward at the back, I think, whereas this car doesn't. It looks really, really stylish at the back. But of course, you've got the practicality of a hatchback. Now, believe it or not, you've actually got less space than the old A4 saloon. So that in there is 445 litres. The old A4 was 460 litres. Although bear in mind, if you do go for a quattro drivetrain, because obviously you've got the rear drive, then that drops the boot space down to 417 litres. Now, 445 litres is still a little bit smaller than you get from BMW in, say, a 4 Series Grand Coupe or the Mercedes-Benz C-Class. But in fairness, I still think it's a good usable size and a good usable boot space. You get a standard 40-20-40 split on the rear seat, which if you fold that down will take total capacity up to 1,600 litres. And as I say, there's a nice square and easy easy to use shape in there. You get some nice little features in here. You get the little plastic hooks just to hang bags from. You get some nice chrome lashing points, you know, to put luggage nets down. There's some little storage nets at the side there and some little elasticated bands at the side just to keep your first aid kit tucked up to the side. So yeah, it's a nice boot lid. And in terms of actually the height of the boot itself, it's quite an easy car to load because it's a relatively low sill. It's just above my knee level and there's not a drop down into the boot. So suitcases, do they fit? Of course they do, with plenty of room to spare. So there's our large suitcase which goes down the side there. Here's our medium-sized one which can just sit nicely alongside that. We've got 2 carry-ons here, one down there and one down there. In fact, actually, that can go further back. Look at that. There's loads of space here. There's my camera bag. That can actually lie flat there. So you can get a couple of holdalls in there, or extra carry-on as well. So whilst the volume seems to be down on before and its class, the practicality is up because obviously you're not loading through like an awkward boot lid shaped. You know, you've got the actual opening hatch to give you much more ease of use by putting heavier items or bigger, bulkier items into the boot lid. So yeah, that's a decent size of boot for the size of car, I'd suggest. Perhaps the downside with that more stylish look about the car isn't so much rear seat space, but it's actually getting in and out of the rear seat that can be a little bit troublesome in some respects, okay? So you've got a lower roofline just to negotiate down in, and then you're in, okay? Now, this is very much a rear cabin I would suggest for 2 people, not 3, because there is a really high centre console here. So there's really no way someone is going to be comfortable in the centre there between 2 others. I mean, obviously there's room for it, you know, there's a seatbelt for it, but yeah, I wouldn't want to go far in that scenario. But on either side, it's okay actually. I can get my feet tucked underneath the driver's seat. That driver's seat's set up for me. I'm 5'8", so that's my driving position. I like my seat all the way down, but even so, I can still get my feet, I've got small feet in fairness, underneath the seat, so there's plenty of room there. Good legroom, and again the backs of the seats are kind of sculpted out a little bit to give you a bit more space. Headroom's fine for me. Now this car's optioned up with this new panoramic glass sunroof, which has a switchable transparency, and I really like this. Porsche do it on the Taycan, Audi do it obviously on the GT e-tron, Renault do it, they call it Solar Bay on their cars, where you can have it go from clear to opaque, and you can have it in different sections as well. It's really I really like it. It's a really different way of doing it, and it means you don't need to package in an electric blind, and there's also less motors and things like that to worry about as well. So I do like that. But as I say, there's no doubt, you know, as I say, if you were 6 foot, you might find stuff like rear headroom start to be a little bit tight for you. There's some rear blinds in this one here, and there's also the Bang & Olufsen audio system with the speakers in the back door as well. But as I say, it's a weird spec. This is called Launch Edition, which I don't think is a standard run-of-the-mill car. I don't know when it runs to, but there you go. Cup holders there. You've got heated rear seats on this car. You've got rear face vents there, and you've got USB-C charging points there. So the kids are using their phones or their iPads or their Kindles in the back. They've got somewhere to charge them from. Children. Isofix points. Audi are still some of the best, I think, for their Isofix points. These just flip up little plastic covers. Nice, neat. You don't have to take things off and get them lost somewhere in the car. And as I say, it keeps it all covered up and nice, looking nice when you're not using them. I really like that. And the seat itself, it's got a nice sculpting to the backrest. There's a reasonable length in the squab, so I've got good support underneath my thighs. And I've got a decent drop down to the floor. So on the whole, as I say, the only thing is, if it's just for two, it's a family of four, you know, and they're not too tall, it's a very comfortable car in the back here. There's more than enough space for some people. But if you are looking for the third person for the back seat, then dare I suggest this might not be the car for you. If you watch me over on Auto EV, thank you by the way, if you do, and you've watched some of my recent Audi reviews, you'll know I'm a bit unsure about this new interior. Now, let me explain why. Because for ages, I like Audi's interiors. I've always liked Audi's interiors, and I kept saying, oh, I wish they'd just change it. It just feels like it's the same old stuff they're churning out, you know? And they have changed it, but I'm not sure they've changed it for the better. I feel a bit of a heel criticising something after saying, you need to change it, Audi, and they've changed it, and I've gone, oh yeah, but just not to this. I'm just not sure whether I like this or not. Now, this is what they call their panoramic MMI, okay? And perhaps in a big SUV, it slightly works better when you sit a little bit lower up. To me, it just seems a bit more of a cliff face. It just seems a bit too big, this, okay? So you've got this curved display, and it's also shaped to be the trapezoidal grille. That's what it is. It's the Audi shaped grille, and it's not quite as configurable as it used to be when they used to do the, you know, their virtual cockpit where you could put the map in here. You can't do that now. It's weird. I don't know why. It seems to almost have gone a bit backward. What you can't fault, however, is the clarity of it. You know, and dare I suggest in some respects, although I will talk about the lack of buttons, it's ease of use in some ways, because when you touch something in the Audi, you get that nice satisfying click that you've always had. You know, you go into something, clicks, you know, click. So you know you've done it. So that's good that that remains. And as I say, you cannot fault its clarity. You know, the white on black just works. Nice map. Somebody in the car with me the other day going, oh, I really like the map. That's really quite cool. You know, it's sort of like, it's almost the sort of Google Maps style of mapping system that they've got in here now. And then when you're using it as, you know, in the wide screens, I mean, it's very easy to see, but on the old car, you could put that in there. And I used to like doing that. I used to like having the navigation in there and then the media over there. So you know, what things you don't need to use that often, changing track or whatever and stuff like that was over there, and then you kept your eye on the road by the nav there. So that's changed, and as I say, I'm not sure it has changed for the better. But there we go. What have you got in front of you as a driver? Okay, well, you've effectively got this screen which is divided into three different areas. So you've got two sort of like information screens either side of a central dial, I suppose it is at the moment. You can change the look of it, so you can do away with those screens there. So there is an element of configuration, but not that much. And then you can change what these actually show you. So you can change it to be trip meter, short-term memory trip, date and time over here, and then on the one over on the right, you know, you can have your media on there, your telephone. There is a small navigation system on that side as well, and then you've got things such as your trip meter for your average MPG. You get your fuel gauge over there, and then the centre one here will show your digital speed readout. Plus you've got, you know, sort of like rev counter obviously on this model, and then your ADAS system as well, so your lane keep assist that will show you in the centre there. So there's a lot of information on it. I'm not knocking the amount of information you get. I'd just like to, as I say, for me the old one was just nice that you could configure it more how you like it. I've also got a head-up display in this car as well, which is decent, you know, and it's nice, it's in your line of sight, very easy to see at a glance. And what I like what Audi do as well, so, you know, again, if you're using the head-up display and you're maybe changing into a speed limit, you know, you're going from a 30 to a 40 or vice versa, or 40 down to a 30, it's nice, and it really does warn you well in advance that the speed limit is changing on the head-up display. So that's good, that, you know, that side of it's good. Right, let's jump across to the infotainment system now. So you go into here to change anything you want here. So your car settings, oh, sorry, whoops, I went too fast. See, this is the other thing, how do you go back? There we go. So you go into your car settings, there we are. And then there's various different bits and pieces there. So you can go and change your Audi Assistant. You know, you can have voice activation of certain things now as well. You can do that. The display, you know, you can go in there. You can change the brightness and stuff in there. It seems like an awful lot at first, but then you realise actually once you've set half of this stuff up, you're not really going to touch it again, you know. What is good, however, is down here, one of the things that always bugs me, you know, is the driver assistant modes. You know, I don't like the speed limit warning and I don't like lane keep assist. It's the two things. I don't mind a visible speed limit warning change. I don't mind that. But when it starts beeping at me, if you're doing 31 mile an hour on a 30, for instance, you can change that. And there's a button down here, a shortcut button down here. So just in front of the gear shift itself, you press this little button and it brings up this shortcut menu here, which you can have 5 different shortcuts in. So for instance on there, sorry, I'll just do it again, you got fatigue warning, that's fine, and it'll go back to a second. Warning tone if speed exceeded, so you can turn that off there. And you could put your lane keep assist in there as well as one of your favourites. So that's nice and simple, I quite like that nice little shortcut. You know, you don't have to dive through loads of menus. So that's pretty good, isn't it? The only other thing I'll say about it, the downside, as I said earlier, is the lack of physical buttons. Okay, so everything is now controlled through this screen, whereas before you had a separate little climate control system down here. You don't now, it's all in this screen, and it is all touch, you know, so it's all by touching the screen. There is no physical controls for moving temperature, fan speed, that type of thing. You've got to go into the screen. Same for your heated seats, your maximum defrost, that type of thing. So that, but it's permanently on the bottom there, but it's all controlled through the screen. Which brings me to my other bugbear with it, is the steering wheel buttons. Because for years Audi have resisted going onto these touch sensitive buttons that Volkswagen went to, and finally they've succumbed. They finally have gone to it, and it's a real downside for me. Because the steering wheel itself is actually quite nice. I quite like Audi's wheels. They're not as thick as BMW's, and I don't like BMW's thick steering wheels. This is a nice wheel to hold. Slightly squared off at the top and bottom, that's okay. I don't mind that so much. Just a nice feel, and it's got your perforated leather at the side. The downside is they've moved on to these touch sensitive buttons here. So by, you know, up and down for your volume and things like that, and it doesn't work that well. And the other thing is I'm constantly hitting it with the heel of my hand as I go into a corner. So I just feel that's a real backward step for Audi in terms of their ergonomics. They were always good. They always had a nice physical button there, and it's just gone away from that. And then the buttons that are down here, so that's the engine kicking in. The buttons that are down here, you've got to press them, but they're not actual physical buttons. So touch sensitive, you know, so bring up your drive select, turn off your traction control system, your hazards, you know, your parking camera, you know, a great parking camera, you know, brilliant, you know, thing, you know, I can't complain about it. But, you know, you've just got not a physical button, except for the volume control, which is still this nice knob at the side here where you turn it to adjust the volume. I do like that. And on the door panel as well, the light switch is now on the door. It's really odd. I mean, you expect that from Alfa Romeo, not from Audi. You know, but you've got a panel here, which is again one big button. So it does things like activate child locks, fold the mirrors in, adjust the mirrors, and also your lights. Now, most of the time you flick your lights onto auto and leave it, you know what I mean? But that's where that is there. But at least you do have 4 physical window switches. They've not done what Volkswagen do in some of their cars and given us 2 switches plus another switch to change to the rear. That's not done, so that's good. Right, so that's that. So I talked about the infotainment, I've talked about the driver screen, talked about the buttons. I'm not happy about that. Right, oh sorry, I should have said here, I can't show it to you because, oh no I can, look. This car's got the 3rd screen. So your passenger now can control things such as navigation, media. They can go in and change stuff. Now that's an option. I'm not sure you need that. It's an expensive option as well. I'm really not sure you need that. I mean, it goes off, you know, in terms of if you've nobody sitting there. But do you need to have that? I don't think. And it just doesn't, the design doesn't blend in that well. You know what I mean? It's just, it stops and then it starts again. It leaves like a real add-on. So anyway, that's that. I'll leave that there because it is an option. You don't have to have it. Right. So the one thing I'm going to talk about now is this: the materials and the quality, or dare I suggest, lack of. I've had a real mixed bag with Audi product of late over on Auto EV. We had the Q6 e-tron, the new electric SUV in, and I was shocked at how bad that car was in terms of the material, the quality of the materials and how badly built it was. Really shocked. Then I had an S6 e-tron a couple of weeks after, and that seemed to be different. This A5 is somewhere in the middle, okay? So there are certain bits of it that's okay. So you've got your squidgy rubber top on the dashboard there. Very, very nice. Clarity of the screen, as I say, can't knock that. Steering wheel, nice colour, you know, nice covering of leather, the perforated leather at the side, I like that. The seats feel good, very supportive, all the rest of it, usual Audi stuff. And the column stocks and certain things do work quite well. However, we move down a little bit. This feels really cheap here. It feels really hollow, this hard plastic that's across the centre of the dashboard there. And then the other thing, these face vents, they feel really cheap. And they've just got these little, they just feel loosened the way they click. Now, I had the BMW 1 Series in, you know, I did the M135 review, and I was saying how nice, you know, they're sort of like little thumb wheels. They're really heavy rubber, you know, when you move them, they feel really tactile. This doesn't. I think it's a real backward step for Audi, I really do. It's weird because they say there's some bits of it you go, oh, that's okay, that's fine, that's what you expect. And then the rest of it just doesn't. The really plasticky door handles, you know, this bit across the middle of the dash, I was really quite shocked with that, how bad that felt. And then this bit here where the face vent is, you know, it's just not nice. You can move it, it's flexing. And then there's this gargantuan sea of piano black plastic. Audi, for the love of Pete, stop using it, it's horrible. And it's all scratched. I mean, what's this car done mileage wise? 4,000 miles, and it's all scratched and looking horrible. Looks like a 20,000 mile minicab. I don't like that. And then you've got this plastic bit down the side, which is okay. Sorry, you know, this sort of plastic metal bit sort of down the side. Sorry, I'm trying to say that really wrongly. It's like a metal look plastic down the side, which is okay. But then, as I say, it's fixed to this piano black, which just looks wrong. I don't like it. It's horrible. Right. So yeah, it's a real shocker, I think, for Audi, especially when we got on to talk about price of this car. Wireless charging pad there. Storage in the armrest, which is good. Little key holder down the side there. Door bins as you'd expect. Glove box, yes. Storage is decent. Seats, as I say, are comfortable. The driving position is exactly as you expect from Audi. You're dead on to the controls. It's really nice. Very easy to get comfortable in the car. Seats hold you well. As I say, a nice steering wheel that adjusts for reach and rake. Proper column stocks plus a separate one for cruise control there. That all works well. So on the whole, as I say, we've got a good cabin. If you're moving up from an A4, you know, or an A5 Sportback, as I say, into this new A5, you will appreciate that a lot of things have stayed the same, like the styling have. But I do think you'll also notice some big downsides to it as well, which, as I say, is the quality. That's fine. That's just getting used to it. That's okay. As I say, I personally prefer the old one, but that's by the by. But the quality is what I think really lets them down a little bit here. There we go. Time to get technical now. Shall we talk about some engines? Why not? Choice of 3 petrol engines in the new A5 and 1 turbo diesel. Okay, so it's A5 S5, I should mention, because the top of the line card is called S5, not A5. Okay, so you can have a 2 litre TFSI petrol unit with either 150 PS or 204 PS if you want. And in the S5, it's a 3 litre V6 with 367 PS. Okay, so that's your petrol engines for you. That's summarised those up. But this engine we've got here, as I say, is sort of like, dare to suggest what the majority of A4s used to be sold with, which is a 2 litre TDI 4-cylinder engine. Okay, and that is 204 PS and 400 Newton meters of torque as well. All cars get the 7-speed dual clutch transmission as standard, no manual in the A5 S5 at all now. Now there's going to be some plug-in hybrids coming out in 2025. In fact, I think they've just announced them this week that they're coming through. We're not talking about them just now, that's for another time. This is a mild hybrid. So this does have, I think, something like a 1-point-something kilowatt-hour battery with an electric motor that's attached to the gearbox. And there are times where it does move on electric power. I'll talk about it a little bit more when we're out driving the car, but it will move, without the engine kicking in. So low-speed manoeuvres, say in a car park, I've been manoeuvring it around in my driveway or something. When you pull into the drive, or when you first pull away, it will do so in electric power, and then the engine will come in. Okay, so it's quite clever the way it sort of does that, and it helps with torque fill as well. So that's good. So economy, what should you expect out of this? Well, Audi say, according to WLTP figures, you can expect 58.9 miles per gallon on the combined cycle, and it's 143 grams per kilometre when it comes to the emissions. Now, in terms of its fuel economy, I've not done any real big trips in this car this week, unfortunately, because I've just been so busy, but late 50s, yeah, I'd probably suggest more late 40s into nearly 50. I'm sure you probably could do it better if you had a gentle right foot, but I think if you were banking more on sort of like somewhere in the 40s as your average combined MPG, that's what you're going to be looking at. But in terms of the engine itself, well, as I say, we'll talk about it when we drive it, but it's a familiar unit in some respects. It's just what you expect from Audi, more of the same. Do you know what's quite nice? Whilst it does start off, depending on how you've had the car, sort of like in hybrid mode, so it moves off, did I suggest, under electric power, you then have this engine that kicks in, and it's a familiar and, dare I suggest, comfortable diesel thrum to it. Do you know what I mean? It's not coarse or noisy, but you just know it's a diesel engine up the front, and it's just a while since, I've experienced that for a while, certainly in a car like this. So right, 2 litre TDI. Sorry, let me just, how do I turn the park? There you go. Sorry, I stopped some roadworks. 2 litre TDI, which this car is. You can have it with quattro. This isn't. This is front wheel drive car. 204 PS, 400 Newton meters of torque. Okay, as I say, there's a little electric motor, sits by the gearbox, helps with torque filling. As I say, it will manoeuvre the car at low speed under electric power. And sometimes when the engine kicks in, it's not, maybe ideal, but it's better to have it than not. And obviously it helps with economy and, as I say, torque fill and lots of other different things such as that. So in fairness, yeah, it's quite a good system. It works as well as you would expect it to work. It does 0 to 60 in 7.7 seconds. It will top out at 149 miles an hour, or as near as damn it 150, Your Honour, where permitted. How does it feel on the road? Well, it feels really nice actually. It feels very familiar. If you've driven, dare I suggest, any Audi TDIs of however many years that they've been out. As I say, the driving position has to be commended. You get in the car and you sit very square onto the steering wheel. Your pedals are dead ahead. They only come with the 7-speed S-tronic transmission. You don't get a manual, so it doesn't matter whether it's the 2 litre TFSI or the 2 litre TDI or the S6. Doesn't make any difference. They only come with this gearbox, and that's absolutely fine by me. I don't have a problem with that as such. And also it's quite nice as well as you've got the 2 paddles behind the steering wheel, which will actually help you if you want to engage gear manually. So like, Audi pretty much came up with this box, didn't it, with the original DSGs type of thing on the TTs. So, you got your left paddle to downshift, your right paddle if you want to upshift, if you really want to engage the gears yourself. And what I will say about the gearbox is it's really slick, really quick changes, it just slides into each ratio. You hardly even notice it doing it. It just, second, third, fourth, fifth, it just, really slips through the box nice and easily. Handling. Well, let's talk about the suspension first, because it will depend on the model as to what suspension system you get on the car. So if you go for a sport model, which is the lead into the range, it's a more comfort standard suspension setup. An S-Line, which this car is based on, gets a sport suspension. The S5 gets adaptive suspension. But you can change the behaviour of the suspension through different driving modes in the car. There's a button down here called Drive Select. So if I press that, for instance, I now get the choice of individual dynamic, comfort and efficiency. And that just sets the car up as you want it to be, you know. So for efficiency, obviously, it will, you know, get to the best gear to optimise that efficiency. If you're in dynamic, it'll hold on to the gears a bit longer in the box for upshifts. And it also alters the suspension as well. So if I go into, for instance, if I go into dynamic mode, you can now feel all the little imperfections in the road. Now, I want to be clear about this. It's not uncomfortable, okay? But there's no doubt about it. You can feel every last little bump on the road, every transverse ridge, every pothole, every manhole cover. You know, you do feel it coming through the car, okay? If you go into comfort, however, it smooths everything out. And that's a really, really nice. And actually, the comfort mode, I have to say, is a really, really nice place to be in the car. A little bit of road noise from tyres. I would suggest that's where that's coming from. You don't tend to get a huge amount of wind noise. It's mostly road noise coming up, and it certainly feels a bit more like tyre roar. So I would think on really coarse surfaces, that's going to be a bit of a downside. So just be aware of that. Let me just turn off that warning tone, because that's the other thing that I don't want coming on. Right, so that's the suspension set, and obviously the individual mode where you can set it all up for yourself. You know, you can have sort of like, I don't know, the firmer setup on the chassis, but you know, maybe a more efficient style of drivetrain. You can do that, okay? How does it drive? It drives perfectly fine. And as I said, I keep coming back to this sort of like familiar word, because that's what it feels like. It feels like a familiar Audi. Is that a bad thing? I don't think it is, because the A4's always been a fairly decent car. It's always been a very nice car to drive. And if, as I say, you spend your days plying the motorways of Great Britain, or running the kids to school, or you know, sort of like heading off into the countryside at the weekend with the family, an Audi's always been a very dependable car in which to do that, and that's exactly what you have here. As you say, it's a good driving position. There's a good if I put my foot down now, even though it's still in the auto mode, it's got a nice, it just a little second delay, and then it just slips back a ratio, and then you got that torque slug from the engine that just pushes you forward. Really good. If I want to be a bit sportier, I can go in, I can pull the transmission lever back, or the lozenge back, where it's in the sport mode, and now all of a sudden I can now change down gear myself. The engine itself never feels intrusive, but you do know it's there when you're getting into the higher rev bands. But that gear shift is really slick. That's the one thing that really impresses me. Now, as far as the suspension and the chassis is concerned, let me just come back out of that and go back into drive mode. As far as the chassis is concerned, you've got front wheel drive, obviously, and Audis have never been the most enthusiastic when it comes to turning. They've always been a bit wooden around the steering wheel, I feel. You know, they're a bit nose heavy, you just feel that the car's kind of dragging you around, whereas a BMW digs in and pushes you around. The Audi doesn't, it sort of drags you around the corner. And it's pretty much the same here. It's not as bad as obviously the old cars, where obviously most of the weight of the engine was way in front of the axle line. So it's not as bad as that. There's a reasonable balance to the car. But there's no real joy to be had with it. If you're after an enthusiast, a driver's type of car, there's no doubt in my mind the 3 Series is still the one to have in this class. But the Audi's a very, you know, it makes an accomplished, you know, car to sort of like hustle it down the road, as long as you don't expect too much for it, as long as you don't expect that last bit of sort of like 10/10ths handling, that knife edge, you know, turning. There's a lot of grip. There's a lot of grip from the front end, as you would expect. But as I say, you just feel that there's no real communication coming back from the chassis that's going to let you play with it as such. So forget doing all of that. and just get the car on a really nice piece of road and a nice flowing sort of like A road or a long motorway drive or whatever, and the attributes of this car will shine through. And as I say, they're pretty much the attributes that we've always had with Audis, whether it's been the A4, the A5 Sportback, whatever it is. As I say, it's familiar. Visibility is pretty decent as well, you know, as you've come to expect. You know, there's a good amount of glass around the car. I must admit, I really do like having this panoramic roof, because Audi traditionally have always had very dark interiors. It's always felt a bit, you know, sort of like really quite claustrophobic inside them in some respects, because the dark headlining, dark dashboard and stuff. So having the light, you know, the light coming in through that big roof does make a difference, and actually it just gives the cabin a bit of a lift. And just because I'm a bit disappointed with some of the materials, that is quite nice, you know, to feel that. It feels a bit luxurious. I know that might sound a bit odd, but it does. I always think light, you know, makes space, and I think space is the ultimate luxury, and that's what I think you get with this car. You know, so it's a really nice driving position. It feels open. Remember, it's a big car. As I say, this is pretty much the size the old A6 was back in the early 2000s. So the A4, now the A5, has grown considerably to be a big car. Just wish it was a bit bigger on the back, maybe, for the family. Right, when all is said and done, there are no surprises here. There are no shocks here. There are no oh my god moments, good and bad in that sense. You will not be disappointed with this if, as I say, sorry, it's because I've got a camera mounted by the right parking sensor. If you, what was I saying? You will not be disappointed with this. If you're coming to this from an Audi that you've been driving for the last 3 or 4 years, you know, an A4, an A5, and you're moving into this car, you will feel right at home. You'll slip into this like a comfy pair of slippers, and it will be exactly as you've come to expect, and it will do everything that you need it to do. If you're after a bit of fun and enjoyment, you're perhaps looking at the wrong car. But if you're just after a real dependable, you know, sort of like honest to goodness diesel, nice executive sort of sports saloon, there is a lot to like here, but there's no real surprises with it. There's no real delight with it as such. It becomes, I don't want to say forgettable, that would be being cruel, but it almost becomes, there's a complacency you become with this car. Put it this way, on Sunday past, my daughter and I decided we were going to go out and we were going to have a proper father and daughter morning. We drove from our house in Surrey down to Cafe and Machine down in Petersfield. We thought, well, let's go out, have a drive in the car and, you know, get down there and all the rest of it. I took the Mazda 3 that was sitting in the driveway and I left this sat there. That's what I mean. It's a workhorse, it's not a racehorse, but it's a good and dependable workhorse. Does that make sense? Right. You know that film, We Need to Talk About Kevin? Well, this is our We Need to Talk About Kevin moment. We need to talk about the price of this car. Now, in fairness to Audi, you can get a new A5 for £42,705, and for that you'd be buying an A5 saloon in the sport trim level with the 150 PS 2-litre TFSI engine. Okay, so it starts at just 43 grand. It starts at £43,000 for the car. You can get them all the way up to £71,000. Now, for £71,000, that's for an S5 Avant. Okay, so in fairness, that's a performance estate car. It's not going to be cheap, that type of car. 367 horsepower, you know, performance, all-wheel drive performance estate car. Don't expect it to be a cheap car. It's this car, this particular car, I've got a little bit of an issue with, okay? So what this car is a 2-litre TDI launch edition car. It's based on the S-Line trim, so which is a popular trim level with Audi, okay? And onto that, it adds on things such as the Bang & Olufsen audio system, the electric seats and stuff like that, the third screen in the interior, and the panoramic switchable transparency roof, okay? This car here is £57,725. £58,000 for a 2-litre TDI medium-sized Audi saloon. Now, people say to me electric cars are expensive. What's this then? £58,000. The estate adds on, the Avant adds a £2,000 premium onto those prices I've told you. So if you want an estate version of this car, it's £60,000. £60,000 for a medium-sized diesel Audi. What is the world coming to? You only get a 3-year warranty with Audi as well. You can get a up to 5-year warranty with them, but they obviously ask you to pay extra for that. £60,000. Wow. Now, competition for the car. Well, naturally you're going to think BMW 3 Series, Mercedes-Benz C-Class. Of course you are. Similar size, the A4's always been sort of like a competitor for those two cars. But as I say, do bear in mind, obviously, if you diesel you're after, that rules the BMW out now, because you can't get a 3 Series in the UK with a diesel engine. You still can with the C-Class, but as I say, I think they're more going down the route of plug-in hybrids with both of those cars. But in fairness to Audi, they are doing it with the plug-in hybrid as well. So Audi are covering all bases. And I think it's quite interesting that Audi have stuck with this 2-litre TDI engine. It's quite clever in some respects, because I think there's still a following for diesel engine cars in the UK. There's still some people that are just remain to be convinced over hybrids, plug-in hybrids, or even electric cars. And they go, no, you know, I do, 20, 30,000 miles a year plodding up and down motorways or doing whatever I do. I want a diesel car. With BMW ruling himself out of the marketplace, if you've been a BMW driver and that's what you want to, you still want to stick with that style of engine, you have to now look elsewhere because BMW don't offer it. So Audi will soak up some of those conquest sales. And once they're into the Audi brand, dare I suggest, as their maybe attitude changes on the next car or the car after that, if they're already then ensconced in Audi, Audi will have something to offer them. So it's a bit of a shrewd move by Audi, even if the sales of the car might not be huge as they once used to be with the A4 TDIs, going back 10 years or so. It's probably a little bit easier in some respects to think of the Avant model as having more competition, because obviously that includes now the Volvo V60, and that's a car I'm going to be reviewing very shortly. It's a bit long in the tooth now, but Volvo got rid of the car and then there was a massive backlash about it, and now they've brought it back. So I'm going to be reviewing that car very shortly and seeing if it's still worthy of this market space. And there's the Skoda Superb, which is a phenomenally good car, and like the Audi, you can have that as either sort of like a saloon style car or estate as well. So, and that's obviously from within the Volkswagen group. And again, talking of the estate, if you're looking at the Avant, then of course you've got Volkswagen's own Passat, which is only available as an estate car. You can only buy the Passat as an estate. And that's a really good car actually. So if you're after a big family wagon, the Passat offers a huge amount of car for the money in that sense. We used to talk about Alfa Romeo in this space with the Giulia, and obviously they were trying to eke themselves into this this market space and steal sales from BMW, Audi and Mercedes. But the Giulia has been announced it's going to stop production very shortly. So that car is there, but they never did a sport wagon version of that, and I think that's a real shame, because the 159 sport wagon I thought was a stunning looking thing, prettiest car in its class by a country mile, but you can't get that anymore. But yeah, as I say, away from your ubiquitous BMW and Mercedes, then as I say, you're looking at things such as Skoda, Volvo and Volkswagen themselves as your main competitors for the new Audi A5. If I sound a little bit nonplussed, almost flippant about this car, I don't mean to be, because I actually quite like this car. There's a lot to like about it, because it's exactly the same car that Audi have been excelling at for years now. It's a stylish to look at, nice to drive, refined, relatively economical, medium-sized turbo diesel sports saloon. If you're an A4 or an A5 Sportback driver and you walk into your local Audi showroom and want to trade in your car for the next thing, you're not going to be shocked by what they offer you, because it's pretty much what they've been offering you and what you've been driving for the last few years. So from that point of view, the new A5 TDI is still a very good car. However, there are two factors at play here that I have to say Audi need to be very, very careful about. The first of which is the quality. There's no doubt about it, I am seeing a downward spiral in Audi's quality, the build quality and the use of some of the materials over the last few products. And I'm really disappointed with them for that, because I've always felt Audi were the sort of like, they were the pedestal, the one that you achieve, the one you strive to match is Audi. And in some respects, there are many other manufacturers that are surpassing Audi and surpassing them very, very well. It's not good enough. And that brings me to my second point. It's not good enough for the price of this car. This is 58. I can't get over that price for this car. £58,000 for a medium-sized Audi turbo diesel saloon car. I'm sorry, it's just too much money. Now, don't get me wrong, you can buy one cheaper than this car. You know, it starts at £42,000. You don't have to have a highly specified car like this. However, it's very easy to get carried away when you're sat there in your big shiny Audi showroom when you're ordering your new car. So I don't want to tar all A5s with the same brush as this one, but just be careful on that point. But what we're left with, as I say, is a good car. It's a good car. It's exactly what we expect from Audi. And in some respects, what they've done is quite clever, because not only are they still catering to the customers that they've had for years by still continuing to offer this style of car with this style of engine, but they're now also hoping to grab some BMW customers and pull them into the fold as well, because BMW have moved away from that medium-sized 2-litre turbo diesel saloon sector. So by not offering the 320d anymore, BMW are doing Audi a real favour, you know, because they'll just drag them in and let them become Audi customers from now on in. So that has to be commended. The fact that this car exists at all has to be applauded. So maybe in some respects that despite some of those very obvious flaws that I've just pointed out, that by Audi doing the same as they've always done, they're doing it right. In other words, perhaps the old ways still are the best. Thank you for watching another new car review on House of Cars. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure that you've subscribed to the House of Cars channel if you haven't done already. And then once you do that, press the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's review, and I sincerely hope you have, then obviously give it a little thumbs up. And of course, don't forget, leave me your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of Audi's new A5? Have you bought one yet? Are you not wanting to buy one because of the price? Have you bought one instead of your usual BMW 3 Series? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now remember, if you're a fan of Instagram, I'm there as well. It's at House of Cars 1973. So if you're a fan of the gram, please give me a follow there, because that certainly helps us as well. And remember, whether or not it is a new car or it's an old car, whether it's a slow car or a fast car, whether it's a small car or a large car, you'll find them all here in the House of Cars. Thanks again for watching. Thank you for continuing to support the channel. I'll see you again soon.